There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a woman finally asks herself the question she has avoided her whole life. Why am I running toward people who walk away from me, when everything I desire is trying to walk toward me? It is a strange paradox that you can spend years chasing what was never meant to stay, while ignoring the truth that was waiting for you to simply stop. If this question echoes inside you, stay with me. Because once you hear what comes next, you will finally understand why your life has felt heavy, why your heart has felt tired, and why the moment you stop chasing anyone, you will remember that you are a queen and begin acting like one. The moment you stop chasing, you hear yourself again. There comes a point in every woman's life when she grows tired, not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the tiredness of the soul. The fatigue that settles into your spirit when you've spent too much time running after people, running after answers, running after moments that were never meant to catch you. And it's strange how long a woman can run without realizing she is moving further and further away from herself. Because the world taught her that being good means being available. Being loving means being patient. Being kind means being understanding, even when the ones she understands never take a moment to understand her. But one quiet morning, sometimes after a heartbreak, sometimes after silence, sometimes after nothing at all, she pauses. Not because she chooses to, but because her soul demands it. And in that pause, something miraculous happens. She hears a voice she forgot she had. A voice that has been drowned by noise, buried under expectations, muted by the constant hum of trying to hold everything together. It is the sound of her own truth, soft, steady, unshaken. At first she doesn't recognize it, because she's been listening to everyone except herself. But then the voice repeats itself, gently, almost like a memory returning after years of sleep. This is not who you are, this is who you became while trying to be enough for people who never learned how to receive you. And suddenly, she understands. She realizes that chasing wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten, fear of being unwanted, fear of being misunderstood, fear of facing herself in the silence and wondering if she is enough without the people she runs toward. But as she stands there, breath slowing, heart softening, she begins to see the truth. The silence she feared is the silence she needed. Because the moment she stopped chasing, the noise inside her stopped too. And when the noise stopped, she finally heard what had been waiting for her all along. Her intuition, her wisdom, her inner knowing, her quiet but powerful voice that says, "You already know what to do." It's incredible how a single pause, a single breath, a single decision to stop running can rearrange an entire life. Because when a woman stops chasing, she doesn't lose anything real. She only loses illusions. Illusions of connection, illusions of importance, illusions of being chosen someday. If she just gives more, waits more, tolerates more, when she stops chasing, she stops confusing effort with destiny. She stops mistaking exhaustion for devotion. She stops thinking that love is something she must earn. She finally feels her own presence again. She feels how heavy she has been carrying herself. She feels the weight she has been pretending not to notice. And as she feels all this, something within her whispers, "You don't have to run anymore. You can stay with yourself now." This is the moment her healing begins, quietly, softly, without applause. Because healing never begins in noise. Healing begins in stillness. And yet, in this stillness, something else begins to rise. Something she didn't expect, something that will pull her toward the next realization. Something that will show her the truth about the people she has been chasing. A truth she has always sensed, but never dared to see. Because when you stop running toward people, you finally see who was running toward you, and who was only standing still. 2. You realize who was for you, and who was just passing through. The moment she stops chasing, is the moment clarity takes the stage. Not the harsh kind of clarity that wounds the heart, but the soft, gentle clarity of truth finally becoming visible. She begins to see the people in her life without the filters of hope, fantasy, or longing. She sees them not as she wished they were, but as they actually are. Some were only meant to walk with her for a chapter, yet she tried to make them the entire book. Some were mirrors, not companions, reflecting lessons, not offering love. Some were teachers, disguised as lovers. Some were storms, disguised as comfort. Some were distractions, disguised as destiny. And as painful as that realization can be, it is also liberating, because she finally sees what was always true. If someone is meant to stay, she will not need to pull them by the hand. They walk, they show up, they meet her halfway. A woman begins to understand the difference between presence and proximity. Just because someone is near you doesn't mean they are with you. Just because someone speaks to you doesn't mean they see you. Just because someone wants you doesn't mean they value you. And how many times did she confuse attention for affection? How many times did she mistake consistency for intention? How many times did she give the benefit of the doubt to people who never even gave her the truth? She starts to see it all. The patterns, the excuses, the imbalances she tolerated because she believed trying harder would fix it. But here is the great paradox. Trying harder only prolonged what was meant to end. Chasing only delayed the truth. Holding on only tightened the grip of disappointment. When she stops, when she truly stops, the universe rearranges itself around her stillness. People begin to reveal themselves. Their real intentions glow under the light of her new clarity. Those who were genuine draw closer. Those who were temporary fade. Those who were holding on to her out of convenience quietly let go. Those who saw her as an option find another distraction. And she realizes she isn't losing anyone who was meant to stay. She's only losing the illusion she built around them. There is a strange peace in this, a strange acceptance that settles into her bones. Because she sees that life has always been trying to remove what was misaligned. But she kept holding on to the misalignment. She kept treating temporary people like permanent fixtures. She kept giving commitment to people who didn't deserve her consistency. When she stops chasing, the sorting begins. The universe begins to separate what belongs from what does not. Not by force, but by truth. It becomes clear who valued her presence and who valued her availability, who respected her and who used her, who loved her soul and who loved her presence because it filled their emptiness. This is not loss. This is purification. This is not rejection. This is redirection. This is not abandonment. This is alignment. And as she watches people fall away, she notices something deeper. The ones who remain effortlessly, not because she chased them, not because she convinced them, not because she performed for them, but because they were meant to meet her where her soul stands. Yet the greatest revelation is still ahead. The revelation that will turn her entire inner world upside down. The revelation that shows her why she ever chased anyone in the first place. Because clarity is only the beginning. What comes next is identity. And once she sees her identity clearly, she can never again settle for a life lived in fragments. 3. You finally see your own value without anyone reflecting. There is an extraordinary shift that happens when a woman stops waiting for someone else to show her who she is. When she stops seeking validation from eyes that cannot see her. When she stops offering her worth on the altar of someone else's approval. It begins quietly. A soft recognition. A gentle awakening. She looks at herself, truly looks. Maybe for the first time in her entire life. She sees the strength she dismissed as survival. She sees the wisdom she mistook for overthinking. She sees the softness she once saw as weakness. now revealed as depth, compassion, and divine intuition. She begins to understand something profound. Her value never lived in the hands of anyone else. It lived in her all along. She just needed to stop chasing long enough to feel it. It's astonishing how easy it is for a woman to forget her own brilliance while she is busy proving she is worthy of being chosen. And it's even more astonishing how quickly her brilliance returns once she chooses herself. She realizes that the love she was begging for was the love she refused to give herself. The consistency she wanted from others was the consistency she denied herself. The devotion she longed for was the devotion she postponed, because she believed others came first. And now, she asks the question she has avoided her whole life. Why did I need someone else to tell me who I am? The answer rises from within, not as a blame, not as shame, but as understanding. Because she was taught to see herself through mirrors, through the eyes of lovers, through the approval of family, through the acceptance of friends, through the validation of society. But mirrors distort, people project, expectations blind, and chasing amplifies the noise. Now in her stillness, she sees her reflection in a different mirror, the mirror of her own soul. She sees her worth not as a question, but as a truth, not as a negotiation, but as a birthright, not as something to be earned, but as something to be embodied. Her value is not based on how much she gives, but on who she is, not based on who stays, but on what she carries, not based on how others see her, but on the light that glows from within, even when no one is watching. She realizes her value is not unstable. Her value is not fragile. Her value is not conditional. Her value simply is. It is untouched, unmoved, unreduced by someone else's inability to recognize it. And here in this new understanding, she rises, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet confidence of someone who has finally remembered the truth. She no longer needs validation. She no longer needs applause. She no longer needs to prove her loyalty by sacrificing herself. She becomes her own source, her own grounding, her own home. But as she steps into this new identity, a new realization begins to form. A realization that will rewrite everything she thought she knew about love, connection, and destiny. A realization that whispers to her, now that you know your worth, do you know what happens next? 4. To stop confusing effort with love. There comes a time when a woman finally understands that effort is not the same as love. For years she believed the opposite, because she was trained to believe that the harder she worked for someone, the more valuable she became in their eyes. She thought endurance was affection. She thought sacrifice was closeness. She thought chasing was commitment. But now, in her stillness, she begins to see the illusion she was living inside. Effort is movement. Love is presence. Effort says, let me prove to you that I am enough. Love says, I am here without you asking. Effort tries to earn space in someone's life. Love naturally creates space for you. How many nights did she mistake anxiety for passion? How many mornings did she believe that exhaustion was a sign she cared deeply? How many times did she convince herself that if she just gave one more piece of her heart, just pushed a little harder, just tried one more time, the other person would meet her halfway? But they didn't. They couldn't. Not because she wasn't worthy, but because they were not aligned with the depth of what she carried. Chasing made her feel alive, only because it kept her distracted from the truth she was afraid to face, that love is never built from pursuit. Love is built from reflection, two people standing still, seeing each other clearly, meeting without fear, receiving without resistance. For the first time, she stops. And in her stopping, she sees something that shocks her. The one who loves with fullness doesn't need to beg for reciprocity. Real love is not earned. Real love is exchanged. Real love is not performed. Real love is recognized. Real love is not chased. Real love is met. She realizes she wasn't chasing them. She was chasing the feeling she hoped they would give her. The feeling of being seen, the feeling of being chosen, the feeling of mattering. But effort is a poor substitute for love. It drains the spirit, it empties the heart. It convinces a woman that love is something she must struggle for, instead of something she should surrender into. And now that she sees the difference, her heart feels lighter. Not because she has stopped loving, but because she has stopped forcing. She feels her breath again. She feels her own pace again. She feels the softness that returns when she no longer needs to outrun her own worth. Effort kept her in survival mode. Love brings her into presence. Effort made her anxious. Love makes her grounded. Effort blurred her vision. Love sharpens her clarity. She finally feels the profound truth. What is meant for her will not exhaust her. What is aligned with her will not demand her sacrifice. What is hers by destiny will not ask her to destroy herself in the process. She sees it now. Effort made her think love was distant. Love reminds her that everything meant for her already knows the way to her heart. With this realization, something rises again, something she thought she lost. Her energy, her focus, her power, her life force. It returns to her quietly, like a tide drawn back to the shore it belongs to. But this return, this inner flooding of strength, is only the beginning, because once effort falls away, something miraculous happens next. Something that reveals how life gives back to the woman who stops giving herself away. Because when a woman stops exhausting herself for others, her energy returns home, and everything begins to shift. 5. Your energy returns to you like a wave coming home. Energy is a sacred currency. It is the essence of a woman's spirit, the quiet force that shapes her choices, her relationships, her destiny. But when she spends years chasing, proving, explaining, her energy leaks away like water from a cracked vessel. She gives pieces of herself to people who never held them with care. She invests her time into situations that drain more than they give. She pours her heart into connections that were never capable of giving her the same depth in return. And gradually, without noticing, her body becomes tired, her mind becomes cluttered, her heart becomes heavy, and her spirit becomes dim. She wonders why she wakes up exhausted. She wonders why she feels empty even in the presence of people. She wonders why nothing feels as fulfilling as it once did. But now, the moment she stops chasing, something extraordinary happens. Her energy begins to return, not all at once, but steadily, like a tide that remembers its way back to shore. She feels it first in her breath, deeper, fuller, calmer. Then in her mind, clearer, quieter, sharper. Then in her heart, softer, stronger, more certain. And then in her body, as if she is reconnecting to a power source she hadn't realized she was unplugged from. It is the return of her essence, the return of her presence, the return of her voice, the return of her intuition. Every ounce of energy that she once scattered into dead-end connections, into one-sided conversations, into unreciprocated affection, into trying to fix people who refuse to fix themselves, comes back to her. She feels herself expanding again, breathing again, alive again. And she realizes something essential. Energy never disappears. It only returns to the place it belongs. When the woman finally stops giving it to places that don't deserve it. With this returning energy, she begins to rebuild herself, not from desperation, not from emptiness, but from fullness. She becomes more grounded, more confident, more discerning, more aware of where her heart is placed and why. And as her energy rises, so does her intuition. She begins to sense what drains her before it even enters her life. She begins to detect misalignment before it grows into disappointment. She begins to protect her peace before it is stolen. Her energy becomes her compass, her guide, her silent guardian. She no longer invests in people who only take. She no longer chases after those who run. She no longer pours into places that leave her empty. Because she understands now, a woman's energy is sacred, and the world responds differently to a woman who honors her own power. Her posture changes. Her presence changes. The way she speaks, moves, thinks, and chooses all shift. She becomes magnetic, not because she is trying to attract anything, but because she has stopped trying altogether. Her energy is calm. Her energy is centered. Her energy is whole. People feel it when she enters a room. They feel the difference. They feel the quiet strength of a woman who no longer needs to run toward anything, because everything aligned with her begins running toward her. But here is where the story deepens, because once her energy returns, once her presence changes, once her spirit rises again, something profound begins to unfold in her life. Something she never expected. Something she never believed could happen. She starts attracting people who move toward her without being asked, without being convinced, without being chased. 6. You start attracting people who move toward you. There is a magnetic shift that happens when a woman stops running after others. It is not loud. It is not forced. It is not strategic. It is energetic. It is spiritual. It is inevitable. When she stops chasing, her energy settles into alignment. She becomes grounded instead of anxious, still instead of scattered, open instead of desperate, and the world responds, not with chaos, but with connection. People who once overlooked her now notice her. People who once felt distant now step closer. People who once took her for granted now feel compelled to treat her differently. Something about her shifts, not her appearance, not her words, but the invisible presence she carries. Her peace becomes magnetic. Her silence becomes gravity. Her self-respect becomes invitation. She is no longer chasing, and suddenly she's being approached, not by everyone, but by the right ones. The ones who recognize her value without being taught. The ones who feel drawn to her without being pulled. The ones who meet her without being begged. She starts to see the natural order of things. What is meant for her moves toward her. What is aligned with her seeks her out. What resonates with her spirit rises to meet her vibration. And for the first time, she understands what healthy connection feels like. It feels peaceful, not overwhelming. It feels mutual, not one-sided. It feels simple, not confusing. It feels natural, not forced. It feels like flow, not effort. She realizes that she never had to chase anyone. She simply had to stand still in her truth, stand still in her value, stand still in her alignment. And life, in its mysterious, beautiful way, brings the right people to her. People who see her, people who appreciate her, people who match her energy, people who choose her with clarity, not hesitation, people who come toward her because they want to, not because she convinced them. This is the beauty of becoming a woman aligned with herself. She attracts from her essence, not her effort. She receives through her presence, not her pursuit. She finally understands that attraction is not a strategy. It is a state of being, a vibration, a truth that radiates from within. But as these new people begin to enter her life, people who match her depth, her energy, her heart, another realization waits for her just ahead. A realization that transforms not only her relationships, but her destiny. Because when you attract from alignment, the universe begins sending you what you stopped believing you deserved. 7. You learn the difference between being chosen and being used. There comes a moment in every woman's life where silence becomes more revealing than conversation, where stepping back shows you more truth than leaning in ever did, where the absence of chasing becomes the beginning of seeing. Because when you stop running, something powerful happens. You stop giving people momentum they didn't earn. You stop carrying relationships on your back. You stop mistaking crumbs for affection and effort for love. And suddenly, the view clears. You begin to see who only wanted access, not connection. Who loved the way you made them feel, not the way you made them grow. Who stayed close because it made their life easier, not because it made their soul richer. Who needed your care, but never wanted your heart. It's almost startling at first how loud people's intentions sound when your spirit stops whispering excuses for them. Because when you're no longer rushing toward people, you start to notice who never took a single step toward you. Not one, not ever. You begin to see that some people never chose you. They simply used you because you were available, because you were soft-hearted, because you were generous with your presence, because you didn't yet understand the price of your own energy. And the truth is this: being used often doesn't feel like being used in the beginning. It feels like being needed. It feels like being important. It feels like being someone's oxygen until you realize they never once cared if you could breathe too. But when you stop chasing, the illusion shatters gently, slowly, without violence, without drama, without confrontation. You simply wake up one day, open your eyes, and see who was holding your hand. Only because they needed a ladder. You learn the difference between being chosen and being convenient, between being loved and being available, between being valued and being used as a bridge for someone else's comfort. And you begin to understand, with a softness and strength you didn't have before, that someone who truly chooses you doesn't remain still while you exhaust yourself moving toward them. Someone who chooses you, meets you, reaches for you, builds with you, grows beside you. They don't treat you like an emotional charging station they visit when their soul is drained. They don't call your strength support while offering you nothing in return. They don't hide behind your loyalty while giving you inconsistency in exchange. No. Someone who chooses you brings clarity, brings presence, brings effort. And the moment you finally see this difference, the difference between choosing and using, your whole heart reorganizes itself. You stop negotiating with potential. You stop offering discounts on your loyalty. You stop accepting half love from half-grown souls. You realize that being chosen should feel peaceful, not anxious, expansive, not draining, certain, not confusing. And that realization becomes the beginning of your return to yourself. Because once a woman understands what choosing truly looks like, she refuses to be used ever again. And that refusal leads her somewhere unexpected, somewhere regal, somewhere sacred. It leads her to standards. 8. You stop apologizing for having standards. Something shifts inside you the moment you understand the cost of allowing the wrong people too close. You stop apologizing for the boundaries that protect your peace. You stop softening your truth to keep the wrong hearts comfortable. You stop shrinking your worth so someone else can feel tall enough to stand beside you. A queen does not apologize for her throne. She simply sits, and you begin to sit fully, deeply, with the weight of your worth resting quietly on your shoulders. You no longer feel guilty for wanting effort. You no longer feel selfish for needing respect. You no longer feel dramatic for expecting consistency. You no longer feel demanding for wanting honesty. Your standards stop being a burden and start being a reflection of your healing. Because the moment you stop apologizing for them, you start seeing who was only staying because your low standards made their laziness look acceptable. You start noticing who gets uncomfortable when you say, "No, that's not enough for me. No, I won't accept half effort anymore. No, my heart deserves more than this. No, I'm not available for anyone who treats me like an option." People who are benefiting from your silence will always call you difficult when you finally speak. People who are dining on your kindness will always call you cold when you finally serve yourself first. But that's the thing about standards. They don't hurt the right people. They only expose the wrong ones. And you begin to understand with a calmness that surprises even you, that you were never asking for too much. You were simply asking the wrong people. The right ones rise, the wrong ones leave. And the beautiful thing, you don't chase either response. Because once you stop apologizing for having standards, you start living in your own sovereignty. You start walking with your own rhythm. You start loving yourself with a new devotion. You begin to realize that these standards aren't walls to keep people out. They are filters to keep your soul safe. They are the doors through which only the worthy may enter, not because you're arrogant, but because you finally understand that your heart is not a public space. And this awakening becomes something deeper, something unshakable, something holy. Because when you elevate your standards, you also elevate the way you treat yourself. And that is where your transformation sharpens into its most radiant form. Self-respect. 9. Self-respect becomes your new love language. There is a quiet revolution that happens inside a woman the day she stops trying to prove her worth and chooses instead to honor it. It begins softly, like a whisper in the soul, like a truth you forgot you once knew. You start making decisions that reflect your dignity, not because someone finally treated you right, but because you finally did. Self-respect becomes the way you love yourself. Not attention, not validation, not reassurance, not chasing, not convincing, not bending, not begging, just self-respect. It becomes the pause before you say yes. It becomes the silence before you respond. It becomes the exit door you finally learn to use. It becomes the peace you protect, even when your heart wants to stay. It becomes the moment you choose yourself, even when choosing yourself means losing someone else. And it becomes the language no one taught you, the language you learned the moment you stopped running after people who were never running toward you. Self-respect becomes the way you love, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you let people treat you. It becomes the standard you carry into every room. Soft, quiet, unshakable. You stop explaining why you deserve respect. You stop negotiating with behavior that hurts your spirit. You stop giving endless chances to people who don't grow. You start seeing your heart as a sacred space. Not everyone is allowed inside. You start seeing your time as a treasure. Not everyone is allowed access. You start seeing your energy as a gift. Not everyone is allowed to receive it. You begin to understand that self-respect is not a shield that keeps love away. It's the filter that ensures only love that aligns with you can reach you. As this truth roots itself inside you, your world changes. Your relationships change. Your posture changes. Your voice changes. Your presence changes. You stop chasing because you no longer need to. Anything that requires you to abandon yourself no longer feels like love. Anything that asks you to betray your spirit no longer feels like connection. Anything that demands you to shrink no longer feels like home. Self-respect becomes your new love language, and once you speak it, your entire life rises to meet it. 10. People who took you for granted no longer recognize you. There comes a day in your journey where you look at the woman in the mirror and finally realize how far she has come, not because she became louder, not because she became harsher, not because she became harder, but because she became clearer. Clear about what she deserves, clear about how she should be treated, clear about who truly values her presence and who simply enjoyed her convenience. And when this clarity settles into your spirit, something almost magical happens. The people who once took you for granted stop recognizing you. Your shift confuses them, your silence threatens them, your growth exposes them. Because you used to be predictable, you used to be available, you used to be soft in all the places they could easily reach. You used to give without asking anything in return. You used to bend your boundaries like they were suggestions, not protection. You were the light that kept warming people who never stood close enough to ever feel the flame. But now, your energy carries a new shape. Your presence holds a different weight. Your spirit walks with a different gravity. You no longer respond to manipulation with empathy. You no longer answer disrespect with understanding. You no longer soothe people who never cared to soothe you. You no longer break yourself just to keep someone else whole. And this confuses them deeply, because people become attached to the version of you that made their life easier. They fell in love with your emotional generosity, not understanding the emotional cost. They became addicted to your yes, never considering the toll it took on your soul. They were loyal to your sacrifices, not to your heart. So now, when you shift, when you become a woman who says no with calmness, who sets boundaries with grace, who chooses herself without apology, they panic. Your silence becomes loud. Your distance becomes a mirror. Your growth becomes the discomfort. Because when a woman evolves, those who depended on her staying small start calling her changed. And they're right. You have changed. You changed because your spirit demanded it. You changed because your heart got tired of breaking. You changed because your soul whispered, enough. And now, the people who once took you for granted no longer know how to approach you. Not because you're unkind, but because you're unavailable to anything that drains the woman you're becoming. A strange thing happens when you grow. You stop speaking the language of suffering and start speaking the language of self-respect. Those who benefited from your old vocabulary will never understand your new one. And yet, this shift leads you into your next revolution. A revolution not of personality but of standards. Because once a woman stops being taken for granted, she stops accepting bare minimum energy. 11. You no longer accept bare minimum energy. There is a sacred moment in a woman's awakening where she stops calling crumbs love, where she stops praising people for doing the bare minimum, where she stops clinging to potential as if it were a promise. You begin to realize that love without effort is not love, it is convenience. That attention without consistency is not affection, it is entertainment. That presence without depth is not connection, it is proximity. And so you stop accepting half-hearted energy. You stop celebrating the good morning text that arrives once a week. You stop feeling grateful for someone who only checks on you when they're lonely. You stop being impressed by people who do the minimum required to keep you from leaving, but never the effort needed to make you feel valued. You stop praying for potential, because potential is a beautiful lie that has kept too many women waiting for maybe one day. But maybe one day is not a date, it is not a commitment, it is not a plan, it is not love. You stop waiting for the version of a person they could be if they ever decided to grow. Instead, you meet people where they are, not where your hope imagines them. And this brings you peace, the kind of peace that feels like a long exhale. After years of holding your breath, you start valuing consistency over chemistry. You start valuing honesty over promises. You start valuing effort over excuses. You start valuing alignment over attachment. And slowly, beautifully, you begin to realize that you deserve energy that matches your own, not energy you constantly have to compensate for. You deserve someone who shows up, not someone you keep waiting for. Someone who tries, not someone you keep reminding. Someone who chooses you, not someone who keeps you as an option. The most powerful shift happens when you realize that bare minimum energy is no longer enough to access the fullness of who you are becoming. You have evolved past half-effort love. You have grown beyond almost relationships. You have matured out of inconsistent attention. You no longer crave people who come and go according to their emotional weather. You want roots, not visits. You want clarity, not confusion. You want reciprocity, not rescue missions. And when you stop accepting bare minimum energy, you begin to see something else, something deeper than effort, something more profound than standards. You begin to see that solitude is not the enemy. You once thought it was. It becomes something new, something sacred, something transformative. Because when you no longer fear being alone, you no longer tolerate being half-loved. And that realization opens a door within you. A door that leads you into the truth that loneliness is not a punishment, it is a portal. 12. You discover that loneliness is not a punishment, it is a portal. Loneliness is one of the most misunderstood experiences in a woman's life. For years, you feared it, believing it meant something was wrong with you, believing it was a sign of your unworthiness. But as you grow, as you release the people who used you, as you raise your standards, as you choose yourself, something unexpected begins to unfold. Loneliness reveals itself not as an empty room, but as an open door, a portal, a passage into the deepest parts of yourself, a sacred space where you finally meet the woman you kept abandoning in order to feel less alone. Because loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the presence of your soul, asking to be heard. It is where your spirit gathers the strength you once kept giving away. It is where your mind quiets after years of emotional noise. It is where your heart learns how to beat without needing anyone to hold it. Loneliness becomes a teacher, a healer, a sculptor. It shapes you, it purifies you, it returns you to yourself. You begin to understand that solitude is not isolation, it is incubation, the incubator of wisdom, the incubator of clarity, the incubator of self-respect, the incubator of true confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you can stand on your own 2 feet without needing to grab someone else's hand for balance. Loneliness is the place where your old self dies and your new self begins to breathe. It's where you detox from the vibrations you once tolerated. It's where you let go of the love you were never meant to chase. It's where you release the people who were only meant to be chapters, not your entire story. In loneliness, you learn how to love yourself in ways no one else ever could. You learn how to soothe your own heart. You learn how to respect your own energy. You learn how to enjoy your own company. You learn how to choose peace over people who disturb it. You learn how to walk away without losing yourself in the process. And in that sacred silence, in that tender stillness, in that space where everything you once held onto falls away, you begin to rise, not into a version of yourself that needs attention to feel alive, not into a version of yourself that needs validation to feel worthy, not into a version of yourself that needs company to feel complete. No, you rise into a woman who has discovered that her solitude is the foundation of her power. And once you recognize that loneliness is a portal, you no longer fear the emptiness, because you finally understand that it was never empty at all. It was spacious, it was fertile, it was preparing you for the life you were always meant to step into. 13. You take back the power you gave away. There is a moment in a woman's healing journey that feels like waking up from a long dream. A dream where you kept handing out pieces of your heart like they were invitations to people who never planned to stay. A dream where you thought love meant effort, even if that effort was only yours. A dream where you held doors open for people who walked right past you. And when you wake up, there is a silence, a stillness, a pause between breaths, where the truth finally lands. Every time you chased someone, you handed them a piece of your kingdom. And you didn't even notice, because you thought love meant holding on. Even when you had nothing left to hold with, you thought loyalty meant endurance, even when it was draining your spirit. You thought devotion meant proving your worth, even when your worth had never been the problem. But now, you begin gathering those pieces back, one decision at a time. And it doesn't look dramatic, it doesn't look loud, it doesn't look like revenge, it doesn't look like bitterness. It looks like you saying, No, I'm not available for that energy anymore. No, I choose myself this time. No, I won't break myself to keep someone else comfortable. No, I'm done begging for what should be given freely. You reclaim your power, not through force, but through clarity. You reclaim it by not texting first, by not explaining what they already know, by not shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's capacity, by not staying where your soul keeps whispering, "This is not where you belong." You reclaim your power each time you recognize your value and refuse to discount it. You reclaim it every time you walk away with dignity instead of waiting to be pushed away with disappointment. You reclaim it in the quiet boundaries you set, in the silence you maintain, in the standards you no longer negotiate. Because power isn't something you take from others, it's something you return to yourself. And as you gather those scattered pieces, something profound happens. Your posture changes, your voice strengthens, your presence deepens. You are no longer moved by attention. You are moved by alignment. You are no longer impressed by promises. You are impressed by consistency. You are no longer intoxicated by potential. You are grounded in reality. When you take your power back, you stop craving the people who once made you feel powerless. Your heart stops chasing. Your mind stops overthinking. Your soul stops begging. Because the moment you reclaim yourself, you understand something life-changing. You were never hard to love. You were simply giving your love to those who didn't know how to hold it. And when you reclaim your power, your priorities shift, your standards elevate, your peace becomes priceless, and you realize the next truth: you can't negotiate your peace anymore. 14. You stop negotiating your peace. There comes a point where your spirit becomes allergic to unnecessary chaos, where your mind rejects people who thrive on drama, where your heart shuts down the moment it senses emotional instability, where your soul quietly closes its door to anyone who brings storms instead of shelter. Because you finally realize that peace is not something you stumble into, it is something you protect. Peace becomes sacred to you, not fragile, not delicate, not rare, but sacred. You stop treating it like a luxury you can enjoy only when life allows it. You begin treating it like a non-negotiable requirement for your survival. And this is when you see the world differently. You realize peace is lost in the small situations you dismissed, the text that made your stomach tighten, the interactions that left you drained, the conversations that felt like walking on glass, the connections that required you to abandon yourself slowly. You stop negotiating your peace by refusing to pretend you're okay when you're not. You stop negotiating your peace by refusing to tolerate disrespect wrapped in humor. You stop negotiating your peace by refusing to stay connected to anyone who forces you to apologize for your intuition. You stop negotiating your peace when you finally understand that anything costing you your peace is too expensive. So you make decisions that honor your soul. You distance yourself from chaos, not because you're avoiding life, but because you're protecting your energy. You choose silence over arguments. You choose solitude over forced company. You choose truth over illusion. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose boundaries over burnout. Peace stops being the outcome and becomes the intention. You no longer wait for peace. You choose it. You create it through boundaries, through distance, through healing, through honesty, through letting go. And slowly, with every choice that honors your inner world, you begin to feel something powerful. Your heart doesn't just feel peace, it becomes peace. Your entire being aligns with a new frequency, a higher frequency, one that refuses to allow loud, messy, chaotic energy back into your sanctuary. And through this transformation, your inner voice becomes clearer, your intuition becomes louder, your wisdom becomes sharper. Because when your peace becomes non-negotiable, your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. and that wisdom becomes your next awakening. 15. Your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. There is a quiet evolution that happens inside a woman when she stops letting her emotions drive the entire car of her life. You begin to feel more and react less. You begin to understand more and assume less. You begin to notice more and tolerate less. Because something within you shifts, your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. Your emotions used to lead you. They used to move you quickly, impulsively, urgently. You felt excitement and called it love. You felt fear and called it danger. You felt loneliness and called it longing. You felt attention and called it connection. But now, everything has changed. Your heart has been shaped by experience, refined by pain, softened by growth, strengthened by truth. And through this refining, your heart becomes wise enough to pause before it trusts, wise enough to observe before it invests, wise enough to listen before it says yes, wise enough to walk away before it is destroyed. You begin to understand that emotions are waves, beautiful, real, powerful, but waves are meant to be felt, not followed blindly. Your wisdom becomes the shore that keeps you grounded. No matter how high the waves rise, you no longer get carried away by the intensity of someone's presence. You no longer confuse chemistry with compatibility. You no longer mistake desire for destiny. You no longer believe that a connection is real just because the feeling is strong. Your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. It sees what your emotions overlook. It hears what your emotions silence. It understands what your emotions distort. Your heart becomes your guide, your anchor, your compass. You make decisions from clarity, not craving. You choose relationships from alignment, not loneliness. You walk away from situations, not because they no longer feel good, but because they no longer match who you have become. This wisdom is not cold, it is compassionate. It doesn't harden you, it protects you. It doesn't close you, it shelters you. Your heart becomes the quiet teacher your life has been preparing you for, and the wisdom you gain now sets the foundation for the next transformation waiting for you, the next awakening rising in your spirit, the next truth that will elevate you even higher. 15. Your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. There comes a moment in your journey when your heart finally grows quiet enough to hear what your emotions have been trying to drown out. A moment when you realize emotions scream, but wisdom whispers. And for the first time, you choose the whisper. You stop romanticizing potential, not because you've become cold, but because you've learned the cost of illusions. You've been burned enough times to know that hope without evidence is just a softer name for self-betrayal. So you stop falling in love with what someone could be and begin honoring who they actually are. You stop excusing behavior, the disappointments, the disrespect, the inconsistencies, because you finally understand something that took you years to accept. A person's actions reveal their truth, no matter what their words pretend to say. You stop rewriting stories to make them fit your longing. You stop playing healer to people who choose their wounds. You stop trying to understand someone who refuses to understand themselves. This is the moment your heart becomes wiser than your emotions. When clarity becomes your new comfort, when peace becomes more attractive than passion, when truth becomes more valuable than attachment, you begin to sit with your feelings rather than letting them sit on the throne. You feel them, you honor them, you breathe through them, but you do not allow them to blindfold your judgment anymore. Your heart becomes the gatekeeper of your life, and your emotions become the guests, welcome but never in control. You start recognizing who drains you, who confuses you, who belittles you, who keeps you waiting, who keeps you hoping, who keeps you small. And instead of explaining your worth, you simply walk away with your dignity intact. Your heart becomes wise enough to see through charm, wise enough to see through projection, wise enough to see through manipulation disguised as affection. And most importantly, wise enough to protect you from the parts of yourself that once betrayed you. Your heart becomes wise, and in that wisdom, you reclaim your throne. But this new clarity leads you to a deeper truth. A truth that begins unfolding the moment you stop chasing illusions. When you release what never aligned with you, something unexpected happens. A quiet shift begins, and that shift opens the doorway to the next revelation. 16. The right people find you without being called. There is a sacred magic that begins the moment you stop begging to be understood, chosen, or kept. When you stop chasing, when you stop proving, when you stop forcing connections, you create a silence that becomes magnetic. Suddenly, the right people, the ones who resonate with your spirit, the ones who value your presence, the ones who carry gentleness instead of chaos, they begin to find you without being summoned. Not because you reach for them, but because you finally created space for them. Because when you clear out the people who drain you, your soul becomes available for the ones who pour into you. And it happens so effortlessly that it almost feels supernatural. You meet people who see you without needing explanations. People who hear what you don't say out loud. People who do not fear your strength and are not intimidated by your silence. People who respect your boundaries because they have their own. People who show up not because you ask, but because they chose to you. Stop attracting situations that test your worth. You begin attracting environments that reflect it. And you realize something powerful: you were never hard to love. You were just trying to love the wrong audience. Your spirit becomes calmer. Your mind becomes clearer. Your environment becomes healthier. You feel a shift in how you move, how you speak, how you choose, how you allow. And in that shift, you discover that alignment is not accidental. It's a reward for choosing yourself. But the beauty of this alignment does something even deeper. It transforms the way life feels. It softens the edges of your days. It lifts the weight off your chest. And slowly, almost quietly, you realize something. Your life no longer feels like a battlefield. It no longer feels like a constant exam. It no longer feels like you have to prove your worth every day. Which leads you into the next powerful truth. 17. Your life stops feeling like a constant test. There was a time when every day felt like a challenge. Like you were walking through rooms where you had to earn your space. Like you were surrounded by people who made you question whether you were too much or not enough. Every conversation felt like an evaluation. Every relationship felt like a lesson. Every disappointment felt like a punishment. You were constantly being tested. Tested in patience, tested in strength, tested in self-worth, tested in resilience. But life changes when you change. The world around you rearranges itself to match the world within you. And suddenly, life stops feeling like a series of battles you must survive. You no longer live in emotional emergency mode. You no longer accept environments that drain your spirit. You no longer carry the weight of proving who you are. Life becomes simpler, softer, kinder. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you become aligned. You stop engaging in unnecessary conflict. You stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop over-explaining your worth. Your mind no longer feels like a battlefield. Your heart no longer feels like a wound. Your future no longer feels like a threat. You breathe differently. You move differently. You choose differently. And as you rise into this new chapter, you feel something you haven't felt in years. A sense that you are exactly where you were always meant to be. You're no longer being tested. You're being guided. You're no longer being stretched thin. You're being strengthened. You're no longer being broken open. You're being opened into truth. And just when you think this is the final transformation, life whispers again, calling you into a deeper awakening. Because the journey of becoming is never finished. It only unfolds. Below is your full expansion of Keynote, written in the same slow, meditative, emotionally immersive, poetic style, deeply reflective, philosophical, connected to everything you have built so far. You step into the energy. You step into the energy you were always meant to carry. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she finally returns to herself. Not the version shaped by survival, not the version shaped by past wounds, not the version shaped by fear, longing, or the desire to be accepted, but the version she was always meant to be. It doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't happen in one breakthrough. It happens slowly, quietly, as the soul gathers its courage to reclaim everything life once stole. Through heartbreak, disappointment, or unworthiness, you step into the energy that was always yours, but that you were once too tired, too distracted, too heartbroken, or too generous to fully embody. This energy is not loud, not aggressive, not demanding. It is the energy of someone who finally understands who she is, without needing anyone else's permission to be her full self. You begin to notice that you no longer rush, you no longer chase, you no longer perform. There is a new steadiness in your presence, a calmness that does not need to announce itself, a strength that does not need to prove itself, a radiance that does not need to explain itself. It is the energy of someone who has mastered the art of being enough, not because the world validated her, but because she validated herself. You start choosing peace even when chaos invites you. You start choosing silence even when noise tries to provoke you. You start choosing truth even when illusions try to seduce you. You feel grounded, not in stubbornness but in certainty. You feel hopeful, not in desperation but in clarity. You feel powerful, not because you are intimidating but because you are aligned. You step into a version of yourself that honors boundaries like sacred doors, a version that speaks with intention, not impulse, a version that knows when to walk away, when to stay, and when to rise above entirely. And in this transformation, you begin to understand a sacred truth. Your energy has always been your kingdom. You simply forgot how to rule it. Your presence begins to shift the atmosphere in rooms, not by force, not by dominance, but by quiet authenticity. People feel your confidence without you saying a word. They feel your clarity without you needing to explain. They feel your worth without you needing to perform. You realize that the right people are drawn to your honesty, your softness, your boundaries, your depth, and the wrong people feel exposed, intimidated, or uncomfortable, not because you have changed into someone heavy, but because you have become someone whole. Your energy is no longer fragmented by the desire to be loved. It is no longer diluted by the need for approval. It is no longer compromised by the fear of abandonment. You step into the radiant, steady, magnetic energy of someone who has learned, healed, grown, and returned. It is the energy of a woman who has finally taken her rightful place inside her own life. A woman who now understands that she was never meant to shrink, never meant to beg, never meant to settle. A woman who now knows that her presence is a privilege and her spirit is a sanctuary. You step into the energy you were always meant to carry, and in doing so, you unlock a future that was always waiting for this exact version of you. A future where you walk with purpose, choose with wisdom, love with discernment, and live with a kind of grace that cannot be shaken. Because now, you are no longer becoming. You have arrived. And yet, even in this arrival, a quiet whisper remains, reminding you that every arrival is only the beginning of a deeper awakening. Here is your deep, calm, philosophical conclusion, written in the same tone, rhythm, and inner wisdom energy of the full speech, without mentioning any speaker name. #conclusion. And so, when a woman finally stops chasing what was never aligned with her, her entire life reorganizes itself around truth. She begins to see clearly who cherished her and who only consumed her, who valued her presence and who merely used her softness, who loved her soul and who loved the convenience of her. Her silence becomes her compass, her standards become her protection, her self-respect becomes her new language of love. She learns that not every hand reaching for her deserves to hold her. Not every apology deserves access. Not every connection deserves continuation. She discovers that loneliness is not an emptiness to fear, but a sacred space where she reconnects with the woman she lost, while trying to be enough for the wrong people. She takes back her power, piece by piece, decision by decision, breath by breath, until her spirit stands whole again. Her peace stops being negotiable. Her emotions stop dragging her into illusions. Her heart becomes wiser, clearer, quieter, and with that clarity, she realizes that the right people do not need to be chased. They recognize her, they respect her, they align with her. Her life stops feeling like a test she keeps failing and becomes a path she walks with grace. No rushing, no begging, no shrinking. Just presence, just truth, just sovereignty. Because eventually, every woman reaches the moment when she steps into the energy she was always meant to carry. The energy of someone who finally remembers her worth and refuses to forget it ever again. She rises, not to be admired, but to be herself. She chooses not to impress, but to evolve. She stands not above anyone, but fully within herself. And from that moment on, the world meets a different version of her. Not a wounded woman searching for love, but a grounded woman radiating it. The journey changes her, but returning to herself completes her, and that is the quiet beginning of everything she was destined to become.